Okay guys, welcome back to my channel, Bob's Garage. In a little short video, I'm just going to go through winterizing some of my yard equipment. So I got a whole bunch of different things, 2-stroke and 4-stroke. Going to take you through what I do. Should be pretty straightforward, but I'll give you a little bit of details. Some of the stuff I've got is pretty old, so I can't say the specifics. This is just what I do. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do, but I thought I'd share it anyways. So hopefully you enjoy this. Hope you find something kind of interesting. Certainly may be a little bit more useful for somebody who's relatively new to lawn equipment. So the first thing I'm going to go through is my sprayer. Now for this, one thing I found out from before is that I have left or not taken out some of the pressure washing fluids out of the pressure washer. There's a pickup tube for using cleaners and solvents, where you need to flush that with water thoroughly. If that cleaning material is left inside the pressurizer body, it will start it to corrode. The second thing I do, because we're living up in the northern area, is I actually remove the pump, pressurizing pump. And I didn't show that. This is actually from last year. Didn't use the pressurizer, but 3 bolts hold this one on in particular. Briggs & Stratton engine, vertical shaft, pretty straightforward. Take that off and I just store it inside. A little bit of water could get into it, could split the casing. For the sake of a couple of seconds to do it, that's all I do. Now the other thing I do in this is in the fall of each year, for 4 strokes, I change the oil out. So you can see this has been done nice and clean. Circulate the motor a little bit. What happens is the products of combustion, sulfur specifically, are corrosive, and if you leave it in too long besides the grit, it'll actually break down bearing surfaces. And the second thing is I drain out, run the motor. This is the first thing I do. Drain out any fuel that's in there, run the motor for a bit just to run the carburetor dry, and that's how I store it. So it's good for next year. Would have to fill up the gas, put the pump back on, it's good to go. The reason I do that is that when gas evaporates, it leaves behind a varnish on parts, and it can wind up getting the carburetor parts gummed up. So it happens a lot, so I spend a little bit of time get that done. Sorry about the background noise, fall, windy, and a lot of cars going by. And that's all I do for that one. Okay, I was going to start this one next. I haven't bought a push lawnmower in about 30 years. I always seem to find other ones have been given up on and get them going again. I went to start this one to cut some grass and break some leaves, get it warmed up to change the oil. This is also a Briggs & Stratton engine, 3.5 horsepower, but I couldn't get it going, and I just was pulling it around the from the shed, and I think I probably had it on end there a little bit too long and ran a lot of gasoline down into the spark plugs. I'm going to clean that up first. Gonna cut some grass, warm it up, and we'll go through this one, getting it all winterized as well. Okay, wire brush, clean out the crud, bit of sandpaper for the electrode, and then some brake clean, and it's cleaned up. Just did that a second ago. Let's see if that makes the difference. Now I can see gas coming out of there. I'm going to pull over a few cranks as well without the plug-in, just to run out any gas in there. I wasn't expecting this, so I'm sure I'll get some comments about using a crescent wrench, but I've done it a few times. Just gotta be careful not to use or break the insulator. And I'm just trying to get this together quickly so I can get it warmed up so I can change the oil. It doesn't need a whole lot of torque in here. That's that. Okay, so just mulched up some leaves. The mower's good and hot, and now I just got to take out the drain plug. I don't know if you can see, but it is, and this 3.5 horsepower, it's just a plug that's got a 1/2-inch end on it. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to try to do. That's basically it. With the motor hot, it'll flow a lot better now. So this oil definitely needed changing. It's dark and it's good and hot. So let that drain out. So inside the air breather here, on this particular one, each one's a little bit different, but on this particular one, there's a foam filter element. So I had a bit of a hard time getting it started, and it's largely because this is right dirty. So you rinse that out with some form of a solvent. Some people just use gasoline, but you gotta be really careful with that because you could have a bit of a fire. Rinse it out, dry it out thoroughly, put a little bit of oil, squeeze out the excess, and then that's ready to go as well. So get a look at that. This is the filter assembly here. So you can see that's really bad, and that's probably why I was having a little bit of difficulty getting it started. Ooh, that is really thick. Way too much oil. So I'll rinse that out, clean it up, put it back in, clean the area out a little bit here. And forgot to mention, I mulched up some leaves, ran the gas tank right dry. So that's typically the way I store all my lawn equipment, is completely dry, so there's no gasoline that can evaporate. So I'm going to try to restart it a couple of times. I'll be pressing the priming bulb, but the gas is right empty, so it won't make a difference. But that, again, gasoline, when it evaporates, leaves behind different materials that forms a varnish and plugs up the inner passageways of carburetors, and it'll definitely make it a harder start later on this season. I'm going to clean this area up here as well because it's really clogged up, so I'll just get a quick little rinse of some solvent off there and clean that off. Everything's back together, cleaned out around the carburetor a little bit, a little bit of solvent. Filter's been cleaned out, just put a teeny little bit of oil in it. Probably put too much in last time. Got the sleeve to go back in the carburetor, and got the top of the air filter assembly there. There we go. I'll try priming, as I said, a few more times, make sure everything's okay. I mean, trying to get the last of the gas out, but I'm pretty sure there's nothing left. This does need a spark plug. A little bit of difficulty getting it started. Put the plug back in. So I use this 30 weight diesel oil. It works pretty good, pretty heavy duty. And it doesn't have some of the detergents that modern engines do. So I'll put the plug back in. I'm going to take the blade off. I won't bother showing that. Sharpen the blade up so it's ready for the spring, and that's basically it. It's all ready to go, other than the spark plug for the spring for the next season. One last thing, so the oil's all topped up, everything's buttoned up. One last thing I forgot is blowing everything out with air down in the area here around the shrouds, keep everything cool. Okay, it's getting real noisy now with everybody getting ready for the fall here. So weed eater's the next. It's by far the easiest. All I do is I empty the fuel out of the tank, put it back into the can. By the way, every time I fill up, I put stabilizer in the fuel, so whenever I'm using fuel, I know there's already stabilizer in it. So I'll take the fuel out of the tank of the weed eater, pour it back into the gas can, and then I'll prime it up. Primer bulb is there. I'll prime it up, put the choke on full, and I'll run it completely dry. And that's basically it. You just want to have all the fuel lines. Unleaded fuels will eat away at the tubes. I've had to replace both of these already, and they're already getting hard again, so they probably won't last much longer again. And then other than that, the only other thing I do is just clean off the end. Clean off the end, make sure there's no weeds caught around the end of the weed eater shaft, and it's good to go. Just being stored dry is good enough for this. Well, one other thing, if you need to do any kind of adjustment of carburation on a weed eater, there's two little adjustment screws right in here, and I think it's in the medium-sized connector is the perfect tool for making air-fuel mixture adjustments. Just got to figure out which one's the high and the low, but it's quite an easy thing to do. This size fits perfectly for the whole knurled in. So this is a Poulin, I think, Poulin made weed eater, though I'm not 100% sure. Weed eater, I think, makes Poulin makes, I think, engines for a whole lot of different applications. But that's it. I'll pump it through a bunch of times, clean it out. There's nothing in the way of a filter inside here. It is oh, I'm wrong. Just a simple little filter, and that looks like in pretty good shape, so that's good enough for this year. And that's it. So in this one, probably about 3 minutes of running, and it's a combination of choking it, priming bulb to get the last of the fuel out. So I'm just basically throttle wide open, feathering the choke on and off, priming it every now and then the lines are completely dry, almost completely dry, but it took a lot of time, and then keep on starting it until with the choke on to try to get the last out of the lines. Okay, for the wood chipper, this is 8 horsepower Briggs & Stratton. I've already changed the oil. I already blew out the filter a little while ago, so I'm not going to show you that. It's basically the same thing as the rest. So warm up the motor. I had done slow while because I did just doing a little bit of work on there, so you can see it's still pretty clean. So for this, the only thing I'm going to do is drain the gas tank and run it a little bit to get what's left in the bowl out, and that's basically it. It's good to go. There is no grease fittings or anything on this, or any lubrication. Sometimes some parts I might put a little bit of rust inhibitor on there, but not for this. So I'm just going to get my siphoning tool here and get the gas line going here and drain out. Let gravity do the rest. And that'll be basically it. And I'm going to put that stored away in the garden shed.